Hello, nobody. We gotta talk. So, there's some stuff going on in my head right now, and I need to get it out. So, basically, I'm having a conversation with friends of mine recently about how people who live in different states are really not that different. There's not really a big difference between someone who lives in, say, you know, Texas and someone who lives in Oklahoma, or someone who lives in Illinois and someone who lives in Wisconsin. It's really pretty small difference. No, there's definitely some differences, and there's bigger differences between, say, someone who lives in New York City and someone who lives in a small town in Iowa. There's definitely more differences there, but the ones that people seem to latch on to the most are the ones that have the fewest differences. So, people who live on a border in Wisconsin, Illinois, or Ohio and Michigan, and they'll be adamant that someone who lives, 60 miles down the road in a similar sized community is just this terrible, awful person who's completely different than them, and oh, they're someone from Illinois drivers. Those Illinois drivers are the worst, and they come up here and they're they cross the border because they live 5 minutes away from me, and oh, they're just the worst. Wisconsin drivers are fine, but Illinois drivers, oh. And you hear this everywhere you go. Everywhere you go, you hear about other state drivers, and they're not different. People are bad drivers everywhere. That's a thing. People always talk about, like, oh man, I just moved to Michigan this summer, and this previous summer, and I have some friends who did the same thing, and so we both lived in Wisconsin before this, and my friend is now talking about how he'll be driving on one of the major highways around here, 696, and he'll be going, you know, 75 to 80 miles an hour, and there'll be people who are passing him, and he's going, man, these guys are crazy. I'm already speeding a bit, and they're still blowing by me, and yeah, that's what happens on highways. There's always idiots driving too fast. Like, you do that in Milwaukee, and you're gonna get it's gonna be 55 mile an hour because the speed limits are still really dumb on those highways. But the speed of traffic will be 70 to 75, and you'll be driving 75 or whatever, driving along the speed of traffic, and there'll be some asshole who drives by at 90 miles an hour and blows past you because that's what drivers do everywhere you go. It's not that big of a difference, and this the reason that I think people do this is because a combination of the kind of the herd mentality of us versus them, and I want to. Our place is good, and those people over there, them, they're bad. You don't want to be like them. You want to be like us. We're the good guys, and a lot of that, from what I can tell, it comes from the people you grow up with, who will reinforce that theory of, oh, you don't like Ohio, we don't like Illinois, oh, we don't like this other state that's nearby us, and part of it comes from sports. The teams you root for are naturally rivals with the teams nearby because they play them most often. And so you'll end up with these bitter rivalries between teams who are in the same conference as you, who are usually geographically close to you. And so typically the most heated rivalry is with the team in a neighboring state. And so you get this hatred of the other team, which is, I don't like it, but I do still have this. Like, it's silly that I hate, Northern Michigan's hockey team, uh, or the Bruins, or but I hate their teams. And Northern is an exception. It's not logical, but I have this issue. But so Ohio State and Michigan is a big rivalry, and Michigan fans, I think, hate Ohio State fans more than they hate Ohio State. The hatred is no longer seems to be about football or about basketball or whatever sport they're playing. It's us versus them. It's we're the good guys, they're the bad guys. Oh, Ohio State's so arrogant and they're so, conceited and so cocky and so, and we're not that way. And if you ask someone from Ohio State what Michigan fans are like, oh, those arrogant people up in Ann Arbor, yeah, okay, all right, yeah, those arrogant pieces of shit, and they're the same people. They're very similar, and and what bothers me about this isn't, oh, I've got this stereotype that about someone else that makes me feel better, even though that's not a healthy way of making yourself feel better. That's not the big issue. It's the fact that it becomes more divisive. Of you can have completely reasonable, rational people who have never been to a place and have never met more than one or two people from this place and hate that place, legitimately hate that place, and think that the people there are worse than them or are in some way bad. And that's a problem. Like, there's nothing wrong with people from Columbus, Ohio. There's nothing wrong with people who go to Ohio State. I don't like their football team, but there's nothing wrong with them. Nothing inherently, at least. I mean, there's obviously bad apples. There's bad apples everywhere, but this us versus them, we're the good guys, they're the bad guys mentality that so many people have really bothers me, because I think it does no good for you, and it is hurtful. It hurts, the ability for people to have healthy relationships with people from places that they're not from. And the only way that I know how to fix it is to be exposed to those places, to go there, or at least interact with a bunch of people who are from there. And like, okay, for my example, I'm a really big fan of Michigan Tech hockey, and we have the bitter rivals of ours, Northern Michigan. They're about an hour and a half away. The only team that's close to us, really. And our teams hate each other. And I fall victim to this, or not fall victim to, but I perpetuate this us versus them mentality when it comes to Tech hockey versus Northern Michigan hockey. And I hate their team. I hate the way that their organization is run. And a lot, when I'm at games, it's really about 50-50 in terms of whether the opposing fans are good to us or bad to us. Good meaning, like, we'll be there and we'll be cheering, and and they'll come over, and we try and be respectful. We're going to cheer for our team, but we're not going to like swear at their team or yell at their fans or anything that's not nice. And there'll be times when people will come over after the game and be like, hey, good game. We obviously root for different teams, but we thought you did a pretty good job of, not being dicks about being fans of your team, and stuff like that. And that's always nice. And it's good to see that there are people who are like that on both sides. But then there's also people who are, who are dicks about it, and they'll be like, they'll be swearing at us the whole game. They'll throw, food at us. They'll throw beer at us, stuff like that. Those guys leave a really nasty taste in your mouth, because it's like, why? All right, you're not even here to cheer for your team. You're here to cheer against us. And the issue that I have is kind of a disconnect in my head, right? Because there's these people who are really, good people, and they're nice, and they're there to cheer for their team, and they're appreciative that, even if we disagree, that we're there to cheer for our team, and we're being nice about it. We're just there for our team. And then there's these people who are just, dicks for no other reason that we root for a different team than them. And the ones that stick out and you remember are the bad apples. And you have to really try really hard to remember the ones who are nice and who are good. And I have to believe that most of the people, the quiet ones, are better than the bad apples. That they're actually, decent. They don't come up and say anything, but they're not. And maybe they're not even happy that we're there, but they're not malicious. They're not, doing anything negative. They don't have, and they don't even think, oh God, I hate those Tech fans. Wish they weren't here. Wish they were, okay, maybe they wish we were quiet sometimes, but they're not thinking, I hate those people. That's where it becomes an issue, is when it changes from, I don't like your sports team and I hope that sports team loses, to you root for that sports team. I don't like you as a human being. I hate you as a human being. That becomes an issue. That's how you end up with riots in the streets. That's how you end up with the fights. That's how you end up with actual people fighting over a game that they're not even involved in. It's nuts. And I see this too much with sports and just with, state rivalries of, I'm in Michigan. If I say anything positive about Ohio, my friends are just going to be like, oh, Ohio sucks. I hate Ohio. And they're like, you've been there once. You had a decent time there. Went to a game in Cincinnati. It was fun. Why do you hate Ohio? Because we fought over Toledo in the 1840s or something? Sure, okay. I guess. Because your football team plays against their football team? So their state's bad? What? Give me a valid reason. No one ever does. It's always pulling contrived examples of, something that they saw happen one time, that, or drivers there are bad because, drivers in Michigan are so great, or nothing. They have nothing. And they just hate for no reason. And it drives me nuts. So that's been my rant for today. Yeah, so the whole everyday thing, not happening. Still gonna try and put stuff up, but every day is just not a thing. That was way too overambitious, because even when I'm mostly healthy, it's not happening. But I'm still gonna put stuff up there. Got to play some broom ball last night. That was fun. A couple other guys came. We play usually once a week in Garden City, but we got a few more guys down there. It's nice to see a couple friends again who came down to play, and starting to get ready for the alumni tournament. Gonna have a fun time. Gonna get to play against Pirate Sheep. Gonna get to play against Pirate Sheep. That's gonna be rough. Yeah. If anyone ever watches this, they're gonna be confused, but whatever. Just let me know. If you're watching this, you don't know who Pirate Sheep is, send me a message or something. I'll give you the backstory if you care. Roommate's coming back tomorrow, so talking to nobody's gonna be a little less. I don't know. I'll figure it out. This was helpful. Bye.